Hi there, we're back and we're making an apple pie this time, and I'm making the pie dough from America's Test Kitchen, vegan for everybody. I've heard a lot of great things about this pie dough every time I do make a pie. I personally don't like pies, but people always say they don't like the crust, but they like this crust. So it's one that people actually enjoy. So we're gonna get started. I'm gonna make a double recipe because we're gonna do the layer on the bottom and then we're gonna do a layer over top. So first we're gonna start with 1.5 cups of flour. I'm just using all-purpose flour, nothing fancy. So we'll do our cup. Got a cup. And when I do the flour, I do dump it in with a little scoop, and then I level off the top with it. So there's our 1.5 cups of flour. We're gonna do 2 tablespoons of organic sugar, or whatever sugar you use. We're gonna do a teaspoon of salt. It's just grocery store salt. There's nothing fancy about this one. Doesn't fit. And then we're just gonna mix that together. This is just a Breville mixer. And we're gonna pulse that a couple times just till it's mixed. Next, it calls for 1 cup plus 2 tablespoons of coconut oil. The coconut oil I use it's just an organic virgin coconut oil. I like this one. I will put all the ingredients instructions down below. So we're just gonna pinch this off, it says. So you wanna have like little chunks in there. I kind of just use a knife and let her fall in. You don't wanna warm up the coconut oil, or else when you're rolling the dough, it's gonna be really hard to roll it out and it'll stick everywhere. Now you want to pulse that a couple times. It says 12 to 15 times. Looks good. And then you're going to add your extra 1.5 cups of flour. So it calls for 3 cups of flour in total. I've totally misread it before, and I just added all the flour at the beginning, and it still turns out fine. So you can skip that step if you want to. So you just do another couple pulses until it's a little bit mixed. And then it says you're going to transfer it to a large bowl, but I'm going to leave it in here. And I'm just going to take the middle part out. So now it calls for 1/2 cup of ice water. So I'm just going to pour that in, not all of it yet, and extra as needed. I'm just going to grab a spatula, and then we're going to stir this part in. And I blended this part too, not the whole time, but just to get it started. So you can do that as well. And it does say, be careful not to overmix. I think that's enough water now. It's not totally mixed together, but what I usually do, it doesn't say to do this, but I will dump it on the counter and then I'll form it in 2 balls and kind of get it in a better shape and kind of more mixed together. So we're gonna move over to the counter. So the next step, we're just gonna take this and I'm gonna pour it onto the counter and I'm gonna shape it into 2 balls and get them into some flat discs. I don't have any extra flour on the counter, so I'm just using what's in here already. It's a little bit crumbly still. I might add some more water yet. So I'm actually just gonna pour it on top. I'm gonna separate it into 2. So here we have 1 disc. Usually when I do it, it's not this dry. It's probably sticking together a tad bit better, but this will still work. So put that one aside, and then we'll work on this guy. So this one has some more water on it, and we're just gonna shape this into a ball. Sorry, I should say we're gonna shape it into a flat disc, and this one is definitely way bigger, so we'll throw some of that on there. And then the next step is, if you're gonna save it to work it later, you can wrap it up in saran wrap and you could put it in the fridge, or you could put it in the freezer and you can keep it there, I think in the fridge for a couple days and then in the freezer for like 5 days. So if you do put it in the freezer or the fridge, you're gonna make sure that you take it out beforehand so it has time to get to room temperature. Otherwise, it's really hard to roll out. Sometimes I'll get a little wheat heat, throw it in the microwave, and then I'll put that on top. But if you do it too much, then it melts too much. So there's kind of like a sweet spot. But we are definitely doing this the same day. So I'm probably just gonna go work on the apples, and then we'll come back and show you the rest of this. So now we're gonna get started on the apple pie filling. I just put the oven on at 400, so it's preheating right now. So we are doing half a cup of sugar. So I just did the organic sugar I did before, and then half a cup of loosely packed brown sugar, plus 2 tablespoons of flour. It's a little wet in there from the coconut oil. Then we're gonna do a teaspoon of cinnamon, a tablespoon of lemon juice, and then it calls for 1/8 of a teaspoon of nutmeg. No, not a lot of people love nutmeg, but I do put it in. And we're gonna just mix that up. It'll turn more liquidy once the apples get in there too, so it's a little bit easier for it to spread over the apples. But we're gonna peel the apple. So the recipe that I'm using does call for the green apples, the Granny Smith apples, but I used Gala apples the other day for the first time to make an apple pie, and I really didn't mind it. So I'm gonna stick with the Gala apples. So I use on a planer, just this one. It's just easier for me than cutting all the apples, and I find it's the perfect width. So this is how thin it comes out. Like, it's fairly, very thin. I don't know how thin you want your apples cut, but this has always worked out for me. I know for the green apples, I think if you use them because they get less mushy. So I was nervous the first time I was using Gala apples because I thought the setting might be way too thin and then it would make for mushy apples, but it wasn't mushy at all. It was perfect. So I'm gonna do the other apples off camera. We've got all the apples cut up in the bowl here. So now we're just gonna mix them together. I find it a little tricky, so I might end up using my hands. Just kidding, this bowl is big enough. It's easier to mix it when you have the right size bowl. Usually I have a small bowl and it's falling all over the place. And you'll see that the brown sugar, never mind, it's still falling all over the place. You'll see that the brown sugar kind of turns into more liquidy shortly once I get a little bit mixed up here. So we're just gonna let that sit while we work on the dough. I guess I should have told you how many apples I used. It calls for 7 apples. I did 8 just because the Gala apples did seem a little bit smaller than what I usually use. So I'm just gonna go get some parchment paper, 2 big pieces of parchment paper for the dough, and I'll be right back. So for this next step, you're gonna need your pie plate, 2 pieces of parchment paper, and your rolling pin. I got this cute little pie plate from one of my besties, Joe. I'm gonna throw, wow, I'm gonna tilt you way down. Let's try that again. So we're gonna throw the one that has a little bit more in it that I feel, just because the bottom uses more dough than the top does. Still not sticking the best. Flatten that on there. Put your other piece of parchment paper on the top and get rolling. So I usually start from the middle and work my way out. Just like this. I've never made a pie with regular pie dough. I've only ever used this pie dough. I've actually only started making pies maybe 2 years ago or a year ago. So I don't know how other pie dough does, but with this one, if it, like I was saying, with the coconut oil, if it does get too warm, then this will stick. Like when you pull apart the parchment paper, the dough is sticking to both sides and it's a mess. So it's better to be on the cooler side, I guess. And I have a hot tip for the oven, which maybe people already know, and I've learned the hard way whenever I'm making pies or anything that might overflow. I always put a cookie sheet on the bottom rack, and then it'll catch your mess. That way you don't have to spend hours scrubbing your oven after. Let's see, that might be big enough. Almost. Be aggressive, be aggressive. We'll see, that's good. We're gonna separate the parchment paper. I'm gonna take this guy And then I just put it upside down on top. And peel it off. It's very satisfying peeling it. It's like a big sticker. I'm just gonna make sure the edges are covered and like it's in the corners. And just leave it overhanging for now. And the apples have been sitting a little bit. So they get, oh, like you can see at the bottom now, it's totally liquefied. So it's a little bit easier to mix and make sure the apples are all covered. All right, we're gonna toss her in. I can make food that tastes decently good, but I'm definitely not good at presentation. The stuff I make is never pretty or cute like you see online. I don't have those skills. So I'm just scraping out the inside, getting the rest of that sugar. Now we're gonna move on to the top of the pie. Same thing again, you're gonna put down your parchment paper. Get this guy on top. Now it's starting to warm up, I think from the oven being on. So it might be a little bit stickier now because I feel it on the bottom being sticky. I'll throw this back on. The same thing that we did, we're just gonna roll it out. The top doesn't have to be as rolled out as the bottom was just because it's not filling as much, it's just going right on the top. And then you're pinching your edges together. So this might actually be good enough. Check her out. I think so. We'll make it work. Maybe this corner. We'll smooth that out a little. Okay. Peel it off. We're going to take this guy and throw it on top. There's an apple under there. You're going to pinch the edges together so there is overhang faux show, so we can take this off. Okay, so I don't do anything fancy for the edges. I just kind of pinch them together messily just to make sure that the apple juices and stuff won't flow out the edge is the idea. Yeah, there is no rhyme or reason to what I'm doing when I do this. I'm sure there's a video for that on how to make it adorable. So I'm just gonna grab a little knife. You definitely don't have to do this step. Grab a little knife and I'm gonna take the extra dough and I just make a little heart for the top because I think it's super cute. Yes, there's my little heart. I'm gonna plop that right in the middle. Then I take my knife and I do a couple cuts just so that you get the steam out when it's cooking in the oven. I do 4 and then I just do 4 more smaller ones. I don't know how many you're actually supposed to do. And then I'm gonna get an egg because we're gonna do a little egg wash for the top. BRB. If you're doing the egg wash, you're just gonna grab your bowl, an egg, a fork, give it a little whipping. And then we're gonna use this guy and go over top. Make sure you get the edges too. Now that I think about that, it looks really yellow and I'm not sure if you're supposed to use the whole egg or just the white. I think it's the whole egg. I should have looked at my recipe before I started this, but that's okay. Or maybe it's just a really yellow. Good enough. Now we're gonna take, it doesn't say to do this step, I just always do it. I take the sugar and I do the little sprinkle on top. Oh no, it does say to do that. Just kidding. I add the cinnamon on top. It doesn't say to do that. That's the step that I do. I really like cinnamon. Not that I like pie, but I enjoy cinnamon. It's confirmed. I read the instructions again. It's totally a whole egg. You can use a pie crust shield, which I don't have, so I'm doing this. So we're gonna use some tin foil. We're gonna cover the pie crust up. You're gonna put it in the oven for 25 minutes at 400, and then after 25 minutes, you take off your little shield or your makeshift shield, and then you're gonna put it back in the oven at 375 for 30 minutes. And keep an eye on it because it might need a little bit longer. So I'll show you my makeshift shield. Oh, it's definitely not going to be a pretty shield. Again, this is something maybe I should look up how to make a nice little at-home shield. And I never know, if we're doing the shiny side up or down. Question for the internet. So I just honestly kind of crumple it and put it over top like that. And then I try not to let it touch the dough too much, because in my experience, if it's touching the dough, when I pull it off, the dough comes off with it. So I just try to have it kind of covered above. I don't know if that's right or not, but it's always seemed to work out for me, and I've never burnt a pie crust yet. But now that I said that, today will be the day. Okay, so that's as good as it's getting. And every time I move it, it moves everywhere else. So we're gonna pop this guy in the oven. I'm a mess. So we're gonna put the baking sheet on the bottom, just to catch any of the overflow if there is any, and then we'll throw the pie in the oven. And make sure I set my timer, because sometimes I forget to do that step. So try to center it over top of that. And we'll be back in 25 minutes. See you soon. The timer went off for the 25 minutes. We're gonna lower the oven to 375. And we're gonna take off the shield. Just gonna show you. Just pull it off. So you can see there's a little bit of dough that stuck to it where it touched, but not a massive amount. That one's just a little bit. And one more. Pull that off. Push that back over the baking sheet, and then we're gonna put the timer on for 30 minutes. Check it after 30, and if it's not good, we'll put it back in for potentially another 5 minutes. I can show you what it looks like right now, if you're curious. Here is the pie thus far. So the oven just beeped for the 30 minutes, and we're gonna check out what it looks like right now. Just switch this around. Oh, you can once you start recording. All right, bring with me. And here's the pie. I'm gonna say it needs a couple more minutes. It doesn't really even look that brown. Maybe a bit on the edges, but that's it. So I'm gonna put it back in for 5 minutes. It's time for the big pie reveal. Okay, here it is. It's kind of hard to tell on the camera, but she's a perfect brown. So now you're gonna let it sit for a couple hours, usually like 4 hours, let it sit. And then you're good to go. You can cut into it and enjoy. I actually made it a day ahead. It still is good the next day. But if you do not wait, which I have done before, so I've made it and then I brought it to work and then cut into it an hour later, it'll still be good. It's just, it'll be very liquidy. And some people don't like liquidy pies. Some people do. So if you just wait 4 hours or you wait till the next day, then it's gonna be more of a solid pie when you cut into it, bro. Thanks for watching. And people thoroughly do enjoy this crust. Hopefully you enjoy it too. Thanks. Okay, so it is time for the big pie reveal. I'll show you what it looks like. I put it in for just 5 extra minutes. Here she is. Hard to tell on the camera, but I think it's a really good crispy brown. So it says to let it sit for 4 hours, or like I'm doing, you can just make it a day ahead. So this is actually for tomorrow if you don't let it sit for the 4 hours, which I have not before. So I made it one morning for work and then I cut it into it like an hour later and it was still good. It's just that the insides will be rather liquidy, which is okay too if you don't mind a liquidy pie. But if you let it sit, then it'll be more solidified. But I hope you enjoy this pie, and if you tried it, let me know if you like the crust, because people are big fans of this crust. Hopefully you enjoyed. Thanks.